Our guest today writes, "The education of a doctor replays the travails of physicians of generations past. There are several reasons for this: institutional inertia, a desire for cheap labor, and the punitive sensibility of senior physicians." Welcome to the ReachMD Book Club. I'm Dr. Leslie Lundt, Director of Foothills Psychiatry in Boise, your host, and with me today is Dr. Sandeep Jauhar. Dr. Jauhar was a PhD student in physics at Berkeley when a girlfriend's incurable illness made him yearn for a profession where he could affect people's lives directly. Once situated at a New York teaching hospital, Jauhar wrestled with his decision to go into medicine and discovered a gradual but deepening disillusionment with his induction into the profession. Jauhar's conception of doctoring and medicine changed during those first 18 months as he asked all the hard questions about medicine today that lay people are asking, and reached satisfying and often surprising conclusions about the human side of modern medicine. Today, Dr. Jauhar is a thriving cardiologist and the director of the Heart Failure Program at Long Island Jewish Medical Center. He writes regularly for the New York Times and the New England Journal of Medicine. Welcome to ReachMD, Dr. Jauhar.
Thank you. Great to be with you.
I have to tell you, I think reading your book rekindled my internship PTSD. It's been a long time since I was an intern, and it just took me right back. So I guess thank you for that. I had conveniently forgotten how bad it was.
You're welcome.
One of the most poignant parts of the book, for me anyway, was when you were writing about doing a lung exam on a patient when she was on the commode. And you say in the book, "Has it come to this? Have you lost all shame?" Tell us how you think our training changes us.
Well, it's such a difficult time, internship. You're under so much pressure, physical, mental, even moral pressure, forced to make decisions with very incomplete information, forced to make decisions about patients, sometimes for patients. You're really under the gun in so many ways, and it's very hard to be humanistic and caring when you feel like you're going to fall apart. And so I think that the training does attenuate some of the humanistic impulses that doctors and that medical students have when they come to the profession. I think the key is to, once the grueling year or years are over, to hopefully that you're not so far removed from your original ideals that you're not able to summon some of that humanism back into your practice. But it's hard. It definitely changes a person.
Now, you nearly quit during your residency. Do you think you made the right decision by staying?
Absolutely. I fell into a very deep depression. I was sort of complicated by a physical injury. I had a herniated disc, which was just causing me unremitting pain. With all that happening, I almost quit. But, I'm really glad I stuck with it. I'm, mostly fulfilled and happy as a doctor. And I think that a lot of the doctors I talk to today who experienced their own grueling internships and residencies, who themselves may have gone through depression, I'd say many of them are very happy that they stayed. It's a tough time, but it's fortunately short-lived.
Yes, fortunately. Now, your blog solicits questions from current interns. What kinds of things have you heard so far? It's
been great, really. I've just gotten tremendous feedback, really mostly positive. Almost all positive, actually, from pre-medical students and medical students and the house staff about their own training. I was operating early on in my career, and I was in medical school, for example, and working with the residents at Barnes-Jewish Hospital in St. Louis, and I always remember just looking at them and just marveling at their ability to operate, to take care of patients, to make hard decisions. I knew that I wasn't like them, but I knew that fundamentally I wanted to be like them. A lot of interns and medical students now, when they write to me, say, we're really glad that you do present students and doctors in, the way that they really are, as complex, ambivalent human beings. We're not all sort of type A, cocksure personalities, even though the popular media might want to portray us that way, on shows like House and ER, but that's not the way that most doctors are. We are real people. So for the most part, the feedback's been very positive. I also, wrote about sort of some carefree days, party days at Berkeley, and I've gotten emails from medical students saying, whatever happened to those days in college, and we miss that. So it's really been a spectrum of responses, but for the most part, they've been very positive.
Well, I find it interesting that the book that was all the rage when I was in med school was House of God.
That's right.
Which, of course, took a very different approach to the challenges of internship, a very cynical, more television-ish sort of view. And
Right.
yours is completely different from that. I wonder if that's somewhat reflective of the times. Do you get a sense of that at all from the current crop of interns?
Well, I think this is really the age of the confessional memoir. The memoir is really one of the most popular forms out there today. People like reading about non-fictional accounts of people's lives. Back in the 70s when Sam Shem was writing House of God, I think that was really much more of an era where people were interested in fiction and novels. I've written a very different book than The House of God, but the biggest difference is that one is fictional and mine is not.
If you've just tuned in, you're listening to ReachMD, the channel for medical professionals. I'm Dr. Leslie Lundt, your host, and with me today is Dr. Sandeep Jauhar. We're discussing his book, Intern, A Doctor's Initiation. Dr. Jauhar, now, some of the people that you write about in the book are very close to you. Not knowing them myself, of course, your portraits aren't exactly flattering. And being that this is truth and nonfiction, how did people react to them being in the book?
I tried to present the sort of true-to-life portraits of the people who were close to me while I was going through my training. So, yes, I did present my father and my brother, who was sort of my foil and as well as my exemplar during my training, in realistic and colorful ways. But I'll tell you, they really appreciated it. They appreciated my wanting to present an authentic portrait. So for the most part, they've been very happy, and they also got a chance to read all the early drafts, so they had their chance to make comments along the way. But this is an issue whenever you write memoir is, how do you present the people in your life? And, fortunately, I have a very understanding and supportive family that was willing to be portrayed by me in, I think, a sincere, authentic way.
Now, as a physician journalist, you've written many articles for the lay press as well, the New York Times specifically. What's been the most controversial so far of the papers you've written?
The essay I wrote about the perils of night foot was very controversial because it spurred a backlash at the hospital, as well as got people at various medical boards very incited by the way I presented things. But I think the most controversial was a piece I wrote for the New York Times Magazine when I was a cardiology fellow, and it was about implantable defibrillators and about the sort of post-shock anxiety that a lot of patients who have implantable defibrillators experience. And, at the time when I wrote the article, which was in 2003, not much had been written about this particular phenomenon of, almost a sort of post-traumatic stress disorder that develops in patients who get repeated shocks. And I featured a patient, a woman in the article who was so freaked out by these shocks that it really just completely transformed her whole life. That had not been written about. There's a lot more written about it today, but I think my article for the Times Magazine was one of the first pieces that explored this, much to the consternation of many of my cardiology and electrophysiology colleagues. But I think for the most part, the pieces I've written have been pretty well received, and I think that most of my physician readers, the ones who write to me or my colleagues who I meet in the hospitals, realize that what I'm trying to do in my articles is not really point the finger at anyone. I'm not trying to be a muckraker. If I do point out incompetence, for example, in my book, it's almost always my own, as is an intern. And so I think that the physician readers I have appreciate that. So for the most part, my articles and the book have been very positively received, which has been very gratifying to me.
And what a different sort of experience as a reader, reading your work in the book and certainly in the New York Times compared to reading something in, say, the New England Journal. That this is more of like an op-ed kind of piece. It's not a, factual study, peer-reviewed sort of work. It's your view of what's going on today or in your internship.
That's right, and I feel very fortunate that I'm able to write these personal essays in a place like the New York Times that has a wide readership. I feel very lucky to be able to do that. Coming up with the ideas is not always easy, but it's been it's been a lot of fun, and writing the book has also been just a real wild ride.
And as I mentioned, I think it's an incredible value for those of us who have lived it and for those who are about to live it. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
We've been discussing the book Intern, A Doctor's Initiation, with its author, Dr. Sandeep Jauhar. I'm Dr. Leslie Lundt. You've been listening to the ReachMD Book Club on ReachMD, the channel for medical professionals. We welcome your questions and comments, so please visit us at reachmd.com. Our new on-demand and podcast features will allow you to access our entire program library.